Hello everybody and welcome to another Doctor Who review. This time I'm reviewing a Big Finish audio adventure. It is The Fires of Vulcan. Yeah, it's time to review The Fires of Vulcan, starring Sylvester McCoy as the 7th Doctor and Bonnie Langford, her first appearance in Big Finish as Melanie Bush. So, quick plot synopsis. The Doctor and Mel land the day before Vesuvius erupted in Pompeii, and the Doctor has known for a while that this day may come, because when he was in his 5th incarnation, UNIT found the TARDIS in the buried ash of Pompeii during excavations that happened in 1980. The Doctor wants to really leave, but Mel wants to explore. He acquiesces, and then the TARDIS gets buried under a building. Or so they think. The rest of the story is basically a situation of the Doctor and Mel exploring. The Doctor gets into a gambling match with a local gladiator called Moranus, and Mel is spited by a local priestess called Eumakia, and she's also feted by a local dignitary called Celsinus. So these are the main characters here. So Mel is trying to get away from Eumakia. Eumakia is quite a priestess of the old gods, the old trident of gods, which I think is Zeus, Jupiter, and I can't remember the other one now. Zeus, Jupiter, and I think it's Venus. I don't know. I can't remember 100%. You can correct me down in the comments for that one, guys. So yeah, she is fanatical, and Mel proclaimed when she first arrived that she's a goddess of Isis because a slave saw her appear with the TARDIS and the Doctor. And Mel lied, which she doesn't usually do, and she regrets it later on, saying that she's a messenger from Isis. Eumakia doesn't like Isis, has a raison d'etre against Mel and the Doctor throughout the story, and becomes the fanatical one who's threatened by the status quo that changing that the Doctor and Mel could bring. Celsinus is a follower of Isis and is smitten by Mel initially because of her being a messenger, and eventually because obviously he's become quite attached to her. The story for the first couple of episodes is the Doctor kind of rejecting the fact and just been maudling about the fact that his fate is sealed. Mel is trying to be the plucky one that's saying, come on Doctor, there must be a way out of this, let's think of something, and is trying all these different ways to get the TARDIS back so they can escape. The Doctor just thinks it's not going to happen. That kind of changes in the 3rd episode when the Doctor realises that Mel's right, and then they try and find the TARDIS, but it's too late. The volcano's starting to erupt, the whole place is starting to be covered in ash. It's not long until the pyroclastic flows happen. Moranus is still smited by the Doctor cheating in a game of cards, which he was as well. The Doctor found his game out, cheated him out of money. Moranus feels his honour is impugned and ends up taking the Doctor to the local Colosseum to fight to the death with him. Mel, meanwhile, gets Celsinus to try and help her to find out where the TARDIS is. She realises Eumakia has it. Eumakia's hidden it in a tomb in the local necropolis. The TARDIS is found. The Doctor and Mel manage to escape into it, where all the rest of the people of Pompeii are either leaving or staying to have their fate decided. And the Doctor and Mel actually manage to stay in the TARDIS for 3 days. The pyroclastic flows creates a shell around the TARDIS. The Doctor dematerialises from that spot, rematerialises back in 1980 in the same spot, and then the TARDIS is found, taken to UNIT's local headquarters, and the Doctor and Mel end up using it to get away eventually. So the Doctor and Mel leave the TARDIS is then taken to UNIT's local headquarters, and the Mel and Doctor find it later and disappear. And that's basically your plot line. Going into the characters, you do have the Doctor, of course, played by Sylvester McCoy. This story is set after, as I've mentioned, Delta and the Bannerman, and you start to see the change of the character, the Master Manipulator, start to come in here with some of the elements. The brooding nature of the 7th Doctor of the later seasons is certainly showing here. And I certainly think it's a nice development of the character of the 7th Doctor at this point. McCoy nails the character for the most part. There is one phrase that he says that jumps out from me. The rest of the cast don't say it. He does. Pompeii. He says it's Pompey. I don't know why. Maybe he thinks it's the Italian version, but that isn't the Italian version. Pompeii is Pompeii. You know, that's where it comes from. It's the Italian word. So I don't know how he's got Pompeii come from, or Pompeii, as he says at some points. It's the only grating thing and the only mistake, and it's weird how they've let that go instead of getting him to say it properly like the rest of them. I think that's really weird. I think that's strange. Apart from that, I have no problem with this at all. I think the portrayal of the Seventh Doctor is bang on for the time period we're talking about here. It is late Doctor and Mel knowledge. It's obvious they've had a relationship and been through a few adventures before this point, and I think it's a good starting point to give Mel an establishment in the series. Mel's character develops better in the Sixth Doctor's era stories. There is another one that's that she does with the Seventh Doctor just post Time of the Rani, which is an interesting point, but it leans more on the Doctor's darker side, which doesn't quite work really. But when we get to that story, in the eons of Big Finish monthly adventures I've still to get through, I'll go into that a bit more. As I say, McCoy is brilliant in this, apart from that Pompeii phrasing that he has. Bonnie Langford doesn't put a foot wrong either. The character of Mel is well written. It does reflect the character of Mel we see on screen. There isn't much screaming though, which is always good. There is a bit of panic near the end of the third episode, but you never get Mel screaming, which is brilliant because Mel was just screaming at everything at this point in her run, and it just really grates on you. So it's nice to have the good bits of Mel there about her precociousness, the fact she's always wanted to see the good in people, her honesty, and her feeling bad for lying. That's all there, but it's taken away the screaming bit. If that's the character we saw of Mel on screen, then I wouldn't have so much of an issue with the character Mel overall. It's the screaming elements that are in the plots and the scripts that we see of the Seventh Doctor's era, season 24, and of course season 23. Her most famous scream is the one that's in the right pitch for the cliffhanger of Terror of the Vervoids Part 1 in Trial of a Time Lord. But without the screaming, Mel's actually an interesting character. This is the first one they've actually tried to weed into what is the good bits of Mel and build on that, and I think it's really nicely played by Bonnie Langford for that reason. The main five characters we have here are the ones in Pompeii. We've got Papidus Celsinus, played by Andy Coleman. Celsinus is a normal legate diplomat. He's had money from his father to rebuild the Temple of Isis in Pompeii. He's seen as a big-wig political entity in Pompeii. He seems to be slightly under the thumb of Eumakia, which is interesting, and I'll get to Eumakia's role in a minute because I think that's probably one of the better ones. And overall, it's played pretty solid by Andy Coleman, but you can see he's like the Otlok character from the Aztecs. He's the one that's more sympathetic to our main protagonists, the Doctor and Mel, and it's interesting seeing how he plays off them. He has more of an interest in Mel. We get the sense potentially he fancies her as well, which is intriguing enough. But ultimately, it's a nice interpretation, it's a nice role, it's a nice role to play, and Andy Coleman plays it okay. You've then got Valeria Hedoni, who plays the landlord of the local tavern, where the Doctor has his ruckus with Moranis over the gambling, where he tries to get money because he didn't have any money, and obviously he's trying to gamble away to get money so they could get stuff to buy wine and Mel clothes that's suitable for the period. And Valeria is just your Commodore Garden pub landlady, effectively, and she plays it okay. I quite like the way Nikki Goldie plays it. She's there as a kind of feed between all the characters. She knows Moranis, she knows Eumakia, she knows Agale, the servant of Eumakia, she knows Halcinus, and she is like the glue who knows all the characters and is able to weave between them to get different points of view for them and for different things. And it's interestingly played by Nikki Goldie. We've then got Stephen Wickham, who plays Moranis. He's been in Doctor Who before. He was in Phantasmagoria as Samuel Hollywell. That was an interesting character, this kind of effusive Doctor Scientist character. Here, he's playing a gladiator. I'm not quite sure if he hits this one as well as he did with Hollywell. Moranis is kind of a selfish gladiator, obviously come from nothing, wants to make sure his honour is not impugned. The Doctor seems to have impugned his honour. It's played okay, the character's nice. I'm not quite sure if Stephen Wickham's the right casting for it. He's got the booming voice, but I don't know if he pulls it off 100%. So there's times when you listen to Moranis and you don't quite get the motive. And that's a bit of a shame, because overall the character of Moranis is an interesting foil for the Doctor in this story, and shows the Doctor's pacifism, because the Seventh Doctor rarely fought anybody. He wasn't a fighting Doctor. He wouldn't use violence or anything like that as in that way. He wouldn't fight in that way. He fought with his mind. So it was interesting having that way of proving the Doctor's character with Moranis, especially in the Colosseum parts of the episode. We have Aglaé, played by Gemma Bissix. A servant girl befriends Mel. She's quite sweet little character. Not much to her, but I love the fact that she's got a kind of divided loyalties between Mel, who's her friend, and Eumakia, her mistress. It's an interesting mix, and the character works okay, and I think Gemma Bissix is well cast for this role. I think she works quite well. We've then got the standout of the guest cast, Lisa Hollander playing Eumakia. The first 2 episodes, when I first got her, I'm going, what's she on about? She's a raving lunatic. But you slowly get the understanding that she is the big bad, effectively, this story, like Eutoxil was in the Aztecs, the William Hartnell story. And I use the Aztecs as a comparison because this is the best story I can compare against for Fires of Vulcan. Obviously, Aztecs is a visual story, it's an original TV story. This is like an audio version of it, but set in Pompeii. It's an interesting way it's described, and the way Eumakia comes across as a big deal in the town. But she's rather selfish, she's rather self-centered, she thinks her way is the right way. It's really quite intriguing how that all works out, and I do like the way it's played, and I think Lisa Hollander was perfect casting. She comes across as this very gruff, and not gruff, but very self-centered, opinionated woman who will do anything she can to make sure that she comes out on top. And it's a great foil, especially for Mel, throughout the story, and how she's smited by the fact the TARDIS effectively could throw down her world. And the cruelty and her nastiness comes out near the end when all the ash and the rocks are coming down from Vesuvius erupting, and she's saying that none of her servants can leave. They have to be with her, they have to protect her stuff, and starts threatening them when stuff gets destroyed. It shows her malice, it shows her selfishness, it shows her character, and even though we don't know what actually eventually happened to her, we kind of hope that she actually copped it rather quickly in Pompeii. It's one of those characters. That's the main cast to really point out to me in regards to the story. This is an intriguing story. It's more a traditional historical, like you would have got in the Hartnell era. Some of the plot lines and some of the beats remind me of the Aztecs, where you have belief of gods, you have one character who is smitten by the gods, Mel claims to be, you've got another character who's against it and feels there's foul play and has their own ulterior motive, and it's really just a romp around history. All the people they meet and the experiences they have are all part of a subplot. It really is a traditional type of Doctor Who story from the historical perspective, a true historical in the sense it is. And it's nice to see having that kind of dynamic with Mel and the Doctor. Mel is obviously a bit more precocious. She always wants to try and see the good in people and see the good in things and try and find a way to get the TARDIS escaped. The Doctor has this kind of brooding nature that comes through in the later 7th Doctor era, starting to mould itself here. I get the sense that this is the story after Paradise Towers, maybe before Delta, or if it isn't, it's just after Delta and the Bannerman. It's one of those, it's in that kind of period, I think. Confirming TARDIS Wiki, it is set after Delta and the Bannerman, which makes sense because Delta's the first one where the Doctor has this kind of manipulative character come into play. So it makes sense this is set after that and before Dragonfire. So it's nice and interesting seeing that and the way it's portrayed on this story. The writing itself, Steve Lyons has done a very good, well-paced plot. It kind of meanders too much at the beginning. It doesn't really set up the scene as quickly as I'd like it to, but once it has set up the scene, it runs at a decent pace. There's not much wrong with it. It's enjoyable to listen to. It seems to have a good parable with the Aztecs, and I'll keep coming back to that because it does have a parable of the Aztecs. A traditional Doctor Who historical. The only real sci-fi element is the TARDIS and the two main characters, the main leads. Apart from that, it's all based on historical, and it's a nice social analysis of Roman life in Pompeii to an extent as well, and I think it's worked quite well. Gary Russell directs it quite well. It's definitely a basic audio play in the respect of direction. There's nothing really major in regards to the sound effects. There's not much really atmospheric effects that are needed here. Alistair Locke's music is really complementing where it needs to. Ultimately, quite a solid story. More or less played the way it should be. I think the direction is standard. I don't think there's anything particularly great about the direction. I think the actors just get on with it and they read the script. None of them feel like they're reading from the script. There is a lot of nuance within the performances, who, apart from obviously Sylvester McCoy reading Pompey wrong, they don't put a foot wrong with the scripting really. And overall, I think this is actually quite a nice little story, and for that I would give it a rating of 3.5 TARDISes out of 5. So how does that fit in with the rest of the review so far I've done for the Big Finish audios? There's 12 now. Where does that fit in? Where does the Fires of Vulcan fit in? The Fires of Vulcan sits in at 3.5 TARDISes out of 5, with the bulk of the Big Finish reviews done so far. The Signs of Time, Phantasmagoria, Whispers of Terror, The Fearmonger, The Marian Conspiracy, and Red Dawn. At the bottom is 2 stories with 3 TARDISes out of 5. They are The Land of the Dead and Winter for the Adept. And at the top is the Apocalypse element with 4.5 TARDISes out of 5. That's it from me. Thanks very much for watching and listening to this Big Finish audio review. Tell me what you think about the Fires of Vulcan. Do you agree with my review? Leave a comment down below. Do you not agree with my review? Leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think about it. Leave a comment down below. If you like this video, this audio review, please hit that like button. Share the video with the hashtag teamstructor, and if you like the channel as a whole, please hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell so you know when a new video comes out. General rule, a new video every Sunday at 4 PM GMT, which is when the next video comes out. More information about that in a second. You can help support me in other ways with other social medias. You can go on the Twitter, you can go on the Facebook page, you can also go to Instagram, or you can go to the Patreon at patreon.com/Deanstructor for as little as £1 a month. You can help support the channel. There is currently 3 tiers that you can subscribe to on the Patreon. Level 1 puts your name at the end of the end card of this video, and all videos within the time you're patron. Level 2 gives you a chance to see videos like this review at least a week in advance, as well as a name check on the end card. And level 3 gets you to see videos that aren't available on YouTube and probably never will, including the extended version of Frosty the Snowman Kidstructor from Christmas last year, 2022. So come and join me at patreon.com/Deanstructor and sign up today. That's it from me. Thank you very much guys for watching and listening to this Big Finish audio review. I am back on Sunday with 6 facts on Queen Elizabeth II. But until then guys, thank you very much for watching, and you know what? I will see you later.